The last light. Thomas sat quietly on his old wooden chair, gazing at the fiery hues of the setting sun. The cool evening breeze rustled through his silver hair, carrying with it the crisp scent of the approaching winter. In his trembling hands, he held a piece of paper, the test results from the doctor that morning. Terminal cancer. Not much time left. But Thomas did not fear death. At nearly 70, he had lived through both joy and sorrow. His beloved wife had passed away years ago, and his only son was far away, too busy with his own life. Thomas had made peace with the inevitable. Yet one thought troubled him. Had he done enough? Had his life truly mattered? He thought about the small neighborhood he had called home for decades. People knew him as a quiet, kind old man, always ready to lend a hand. But were those small acts of kindness enough? A fateful encounter. That night, Thomas woke to a strange noise. He listened closely. Someone was tampering with his back door. Instead of fear, a calm curiosity settled over him. Grabbing his cane, he walked slowly toward the kitchen. As he flicked on the light, he saw a shadowy figure struggling to pry open the window. The intruder froze, ready to flee, but Thomas's voice stopped him. "What are you doing?" The man, no older than 30, hesitated. I don't want to hurt you. I just need some money." Thomas observed the young man, tattered clothes, hollow eyes, desperation etched into his face. But beyond the rough exterior, he saw something else. He didn't yell. He didn't call the police. Instead, he sighed and said, "Are you hungry? I have some hot soup." The man blinked in disbelief. "You're not afraid of me?" Thomas chuckled. "I'm dying. There's not much left to fear. But I think you still have a lot to lose." The man hesitated, torn between shame and desperation. But the biting cold and the promise of warmth drew him in. Slowly, he stepped inside and sat at the kitchen table while Thomas poured a bowl of soup. As the warmth seeped into his bones, the tension in his body eased. Finally, he spoke. "My name's Daniel. I don't want to be like this, but I have no choice. I had a job, a family. But one mistake ruined everything. I got out of prison 6 months ago, but no one will hire me. I tried, really tried, but society won't give me a second chance." Thomas listened intently. When Daniel finished, he simply said, "Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what you do with the rest of your life." Daniel lowered his gaze. "I don't know. I just want a normal life." Thomas smiled. "And then start today. A second chance." The next morning, Thomas took Daniel to a small bakery owned by his old friend, Linda. "Linda, my grandson needs a job. He can wash dishes, clean anything." Linda eyed Daniel warily. But when she saw the sincerity in Thomas's eyes, she nodded. "All right, I'll give him a chance." Daniel could hardly believe it. Why are you helping me?" Thomas patted his shoulder. "Because everyone deserves a second chance." Days turned into weeks, and Daniel worked harder than ever. At first, people were skeptical, but as they saw his dedication and honesty, they began to accept him. For the first time in years, he felt like he belonged. As for Thomas, he spent his remaining days with a peaceful heart. 3 months later, when Thomas passed away, the entire neighborhood came to say goodbye, but no one wept more than Daniel. Standing at the old man's grave, eyes red with grief, he whispered, "I won't let you down, I promise." And from that day forward, he never did. The last light, a promise kept. Months had passed since Thomas's funeral, but his presence lingered in Daniel's mind like an echo in the wind. Every morning as he walked into the bakery, he could almost hear the old man's voice. Everyone deserves a second chance. And Daniel was determined to prove that Thomas's faith in him had not been misplaced. An unexpected letter. One cold morning, as Daniel was wiping down the counters, Linda walked in, holding an envelope. "This came for you," she said, handing it over with a curious look. Daniel frowned. He never received mail. Who would send him anything? Carefully, he tore open the envelope. Inside was a neatly folded letter. As his eyes scanned the words, his hands began to tremble. It was from a lawyer. The letter explained that before Thomas passed, he had left something for Daniel, a key to a small apartment on the quieter side of town. The old man had bought it long ago, intending to rent it out, but instead, he had left it for Daniel. Tears blurred his vision as he read the last lines of the letter. A home is the first step toward a new life. Make it yours. Make it count. Thomas. Daniel clutched the letter to his chest. The past comes knocking. For the first time in years, Daniel had a place to call his own. The apartment was simple but warm, with bookshelves lined with Thomas's old novels and a cozy chair by the window. Every night, Daniel would sit there and stare at the stars, whispering his silent thanks to the man who had given him more than just a second chance. He had given him hope. One evening, as he closed up the bakery, a shadow stepped out from the alleyway. Daniel. The voice made his blood run cold. He knew that voice. Turning around, he saw a man he never thought he'd see again, Mike, his old partner in crime. The man who had vanished when Daniel got arrested years ago, leaving him to take the fall alone. Mike smirked. Heard you've been playing the good guy now? Daniel clenched his fists. What do you want? A job. Like the one that old man gave you? The words hit Daniel like a punch to the gut. This was the man who had betrayed him, who had never visited him in prison, who had walked away when he needed him most. Every instinct screamed at Daniel to turn away, to tell Mike he deserved whatever misery life had thrown at him. But then another voice echoed in his mind. Everyone deserves a second chance. He exhaled slowly, looking Mike dead in the eyes. Be here at 6 a.m. Don't be late. A legacy that lived on. The next day, Linda nearly had a heart attack when she saw Mike walk through the doors. Are you sure about this? She whispered to Daniel. He nodded. Thomas didn't just save me. He showed me how to save others. Mike wasn't perfect. He made mistakes, and it took time for the town to trust him. But Daniel never gave up on him, just as Thomas had never given up on him. Years later, on the anniversary of Thomas's passing, Daniel stood at his grave once more. This time, he wasn't alone. Standing beside him were Linda, Mike, and others who had found their way back because of Thomas's kindness. With a small smile, Daniel placed a single flower on the tombstone and whispered, I kept my promise.